Mr. Eiland, welcome, sir.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Chairman.
Say your name, begin.
Craig Eiland for Texas Trial Lawyers. When I was a freshman member of the legislature, a wise man, David Counts from Knox City, told me, he said, Craig, usually when somebody comes to see you, they're only wanting a fair advantage. And after 20 years serving, that was often true. As that applies to RECLA, I believe RECLA, as it was passed and practiced for many years, that it was a fair advantage for builders. What happened is in 2019, there was a case and a court of appeals overturned and made RECLA now an unfair advantage for builders. The court of appeals upended our policy, the legislature's policy of saying homeowner, because this applies to homeowners. That's why it's so important that we get this right. Homeowner gives builder notice. Builder, you have a chance to inspect. Now they have 3 chances to inspect, which is fair. After you inspect, you get a chance to make an offer. And then the whole policy, the whole balancing of this act is, if you make a reasonable offer, builder, and the homeowner refuses it, the homeowner can never recover more than the value of that offer. So if you reject an offer, you better be right, because that's as good as you're ever going to get. Alternatively, the other balance is, builder, you better make a reasonable offer, because if it's the jury or arbitrator determines that the offer is unreasonable, then the homeowner can recover attorney's fees, engineering fees, and expert costs, as well as the cost to move out of the house while it's being repaired. So that's the balance. What happened in this court case is they said, we looked at the legislature's language, not the intent, not the policy, not the balancing. It said, we looked at the language in the bill, and it says a homeowner may recover the following elements of damages if it's an unreasonable offer, but this act does not create a cause of action. Therefore, the homeowner must prove an underlying cause of action that authorizes attorney's fees, authorizes alternative living expenses. So if you as a homeowner now, since 2019, not before, not for the 10 or 15 years before, now, if you go prove that the builder caused a construction defect, made an unreasonable offer, and that construction defect was caused by negligence, you can never be made whole. That's what the court said, because negligence is not an underlying cause of action that authorizes attorney's fees, alternative living expenses, or engineering fees. So what is the rationale for that policy of saying you prove a construction defect, you prove an unreasonable offer, but if you prove negligence caused that defect, homeowner, you're screwed. This is especially important for secondary purchasers. Because if you purchase a home from somebody that purchases a home from a builder, you don't have any breach of contract, because you didn't have a contract with that builder. You don't have a DTPA cause of action because they made no representations to you. So as a secondary purchaser, you're basically limited to proving negligence, and you will never be made whole.
Senator Johnson.
I wanted to ask Mr. Eiland, so in your professional judgment, did the 2019 decision gut the statute? Render it, what's up with my enunciation today? Render it essentially useless to homeowners?
No, it's still useful to homeowners. It just creates an unbalanced policy. It is unfair that a homeowner can prove a construction defect, prove an unreasonable offer, and still not be able to be made whole with their attorney's fees, expenses, and alternative living expenses.
So they've lost that additional benefit.
They've lost that benefit.
The court has taken away that additional benefit, and in your view, it ought to be put in there explicitly so that courts can't conclude that the specification of liability somehow it doesn't create a cause of action.
Right. We need to rebalance it, and just all I'm asking is take it back to the way it was intended before this court said the legislature used the words may, not shall.
So is your concern with this bill the absence of something that should be in there, or do you have concerns with the content that already is in there?
we've sat down, I've sat down with these guys in their office over the last 2 years, I think on at least three, maybe four occasions to work through everything else in the bill. And this was a non-negotiable point, and I don't blame them. They got what I think is an unfair advantage on this one distinct issue through the courts, not through the legislature, and they don't want to give it up. And to me, it's a policy issue for this body to determine, are we going to go back and rebalance this so that a homeowner who proves a construction defect, an unreasonable offer, can be made whole? And I have specific language I can submit.